Chosen one, pause right here. Before another thought rushes into your mind, before your day pulls you in 10 different directions, let your spirit recognize what your mind has not yet processed. This moment is not ordinary. You did not stumble onto this message by curiosity, by habit, or by accident. You were brought here. You were led here. You were summoned here. Heaven has orchestrated this moment with more precision than you realize. There are divine appointments in life, rare, sacred intersections where the natural and the supernatural collide, and you are standing in one right now. Everything in your atmosphere that felt random, delayed, confusing, or heavy today was part of a larger orchestration designed to position you for this exact encounter. You didn't wake up by chance. You didn't pause on this message by chance. You didn't feel the tug in your spirit by chance. Something in the unseen realm shifted, and heaven needed you here. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, chosen one, the weight you carried silently today, the questions you hid behind your smile, the thoughts you tried to ignore, none of them escaped the eyes of God. The Father has watched every step you've taken, not with judgment, but with deep affection. And today, He has drawn you into this exact moment because there is something He wants you to hear, something sacred, personal, and timely. You have walked through enough chaos lately to question whether God still sees you the way He once did. You've endured moments that left you wondering if heaven forgot your name. But divine appointments are heaven's way of reminding you. You are not lost. You are not overlooked. You are not wandering without direction. You are being guided. Every delay was direction. Every detour was protection. Every closed door was redirection. Every heavy season was preparation. And this message? This is heaven's confirmation. You are not here to be comforted temporarily. You are here to be aligned spiritually. You are here to receive clarity, affirmation, and divine truth. Right now, the atmosphere around you is shifting. Your spirit feels the pull because heaven is speaking. You didn't find this moment. This moment found you. And the God who led you here is about to reveal something that will change the way you see yourself, your journey, and the season you are stepping into. Stay here. Stay open. Stay expectant. Your divine appointment has begun. Chosen one, breathe for a moment and let this truth settle into the deepest part of your spirit. God is pleased with you. Not in a distant, general, vague sense, but personally, specifically, intentionally. His delight over your life is real. It is present. It is active. It is stronger than the doubts you've battled and louder than the criticism you've endured. You may not understand why God would be pleased. You may even feel unworthy of His joy. But heaven sees differently than you do. God has watched you navigate battles no one else knew you were fighting. He has seen you hold your tongue when your flesh wanted to retaliate. He saw the compassion you offered when you didn't have much left in your heart to give. He saw you choose humility when pride would have felt easier. He saw you forgive when the wound was still fresh. He saw you pray when you felt numb. He saw you try again after a day that nearly broke you. Others might have missed those moments. Heaven did not. Heaven does not celebrate loud victories alone. Heaven celebrates the quiet ones, the ones that don't make sense to anyone except God. The ones you felt embarrassed by because they didn't look like strength to you. But to God, they were worship. They were devotion. They were faith in motion. That moment when you whispered His name through your tears, that moved Him. The moment you resisted an old temptation, that pleased Him. the moment you chose kindness over bitterness. That honored him, and today the Father looks upon you with a smile, not because you were flawless, but because you were faithful, not because you never fell, but because you kept getting up, not because you walked perfectly, but because you walked honestly. You have been harder on yourself than God has ever been on you. You've replayed your mistakes, but God replayed your growth. You focused on your inconsistency, but God focused on your heart. You've seen your weakness, but God has seen your willingness. Heaven delights in the direction of your heart far more than the perfection of your habits. Psalm 33:18 says, "The eyes of the Lord are on those who fear him, on those whose hope is in his unfailing love." You've hoped in him even when hope felt fragile. You've believed even when belief shook. You've held on even when you were tired of holding on. That is why God is pleased. He sees past the surface. He sees past the struggle. He sees past the noise. He sees your heart, and he calls it beautiful. Chosen one, let this truth wash over you. You bring joy to the heart of God. You make heaven smile. You carry a fragrance of sincerity that rises before his throne. And today, he delights in you, not for who you pretend to be, but for who you truly are. Rest in that. Receive that. Let it rewrite how you see yourself. Heaven delights in you, and that delight is your strength for the road ahead. Chosen one, if there is one truth that could heal years of misunderstanding, it is this: people see actions, but God sees the heart. Human eyes interpret behavior, but heaven reads motive, intention, and spiritual weight. And everything that others overlooked, misunderstood, or misjudged about you, God saw with perfect clarity. People saw a moment. God saw the journey behind the moment. People saw an action. God saw the heart that produced it. People saw inconsistency. God saw warfare, growth, and quiet obedience. You have spent so much of your life feeling unseen, not because you sought attention, but because you longed to be understood. You wanted someone to see the why behind your choices. You wanted someone to see your efforts, not just your outcomes. But instead, people evaluated you from the outside, never realizing what was happening inside your soul. Yet heaven knew. 1 Samuel 16:7 declares, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." This verse has never been truer for you than in this season. While others formed opinions based on fragments, God held the full picture. While others judged based on what they saw, God honored what they didn't see. He saw the nights you stayed up praying when no one knew you were breaking. He saw the mornings you chose discipline over discouragement. He saw the patience you showed when others deserved your anger. He saw the love you gave that was never reciprocated. He saw the kindness you offered in rooms where you were quietly disrespected. He saw the restraint you exercised when your emotions wanted revenge. Every unseen moment of heavenward struggle is recorded. Heaven has archives of every silent yes, every moment of resistance, every attempt to stay aligned with God, even when your heart felt tired. People may remember your mistakes longer than your sacrifices, but God remembers your sacrifices longer than your mistakes. Mark 12 tells us of the widow who gave 2 small coins. To the crowd, it looked insignificant, but to Jesus, it was everything, because God measures the weight of the heart, not the size of the action. You have given God moments like that. Moments no one applauded, no one noticed, no one praised, but heaven noticed. Heaven celebrated. Luke 12:7 reminds you that even the hairs on your head are numbered. That means God's care is not general. It is detailed, intimate, deliberate. If He counts strands of hair, how much more does He count your heartbreaks, your tears, your silent endurance? Chosen one, understand this. Your value was never determined by who saw you. Your worth was never diminished by who overlooked you. Your identity was never shaped by human perception. Heaven has watched you closely, not to accuse you, but to affirm you, not to shame you, but to strengthen you, not to judge your pace, but to honor your perseverance. You are not who people said you were. You are who God knows you are. And God sees you with a clarity that heals everything human eyes failed to see. Chosen one. There are moments in your life that felt small to you, moments you barely remembered, moments you dismissed as weakness. But in the courts of heaven, those very moments made the entire spiritual realm stand still. They were not moments of loud praise, perfect strength, or flawless obedience. They were moments born out of pain, exhaustion, and desperation, moments that revealed who you truly are. You thought heaven celebrated your victories, and it does, but heaven celebrates something far deeper, your wounded worship. There were nights when the weight on your chest felt impossible, nights when your tears soaked the pillow and your heart trembled under pressure you never told anyone about. Yet even then, especially then, you whispered, "God, I need you." That whisper shook heaven more than 1,000 loud prayers. When you dragged yourself into His presence with trembling faith, heaven paused. Angels leaned in. The Father spoke your name with tenderness. Because anyone can praise when they feel strong, but only a truly chosen one worships while wounded. There was a moment, yes, you remember it, when your soul felt like it was breaking. You stood in silence, unable to form a full prayer. All you managed was a sigh, a tear, a whisper. The world would have called it weakness, but God called it holy. That moment rose before His throne like incense. It was not the strength of your voice that moved Him. It was the sincerity of your heart. There were days when bitterness would have been justified, days when anger felt easier than grace, days when shutting down would have protected your heart. But you chose softness. You chose compassion. You chose restraint. You chose forgiveness even when the wound was fresh. And each time you chose righteousness over reaction, heaven stood still in reverence of your decision. The enemy expected your heartbreak to harden you, but it humbled you. He expected your trial to destroy your faith, but it deepened it. He expected your setbacks to silence you, but they pushed you closer to God. Every time you rose when you could have collapsed, every time you tried again when quitting felt justified, every time you chose God while walking through fire, heaven erupted in celebration. You thought you were crawling. God said, "Look at them. That is what endurance looks like." You thought you were barely surviving. Heaven said, "That is the bravery of the chosen." You thought your prayer was weak. God said that was the moment their heart touched mine. Chosen one, your quiet yes in the middle of your storm echoed louder in heaven than any public victory ever could. You have no idea how many times the angels paused their assignments to witness your faith. You don't know how many times the Father whispered, "I'm proud of them," when you pressed forward in pain. This is why heaven favors you. This is why the Spirit rests on you. This is why God delights in you. Because when you had every reason to walk away, you stayed. And in that moment, heaven stood still. Chosen one, There are victories in your life that no one clapped for, no one acknowledged, no one even knew happened. They were small in appearance, quiet in expression, invisible to human eyes, but in heaven they were recorded with reverence. Heaven remembers what you forgot. Heaven celebrates what you dismissed. Heaven honors what you thought didn't matter, because God does not count victory the way the world does. People applaud loud achievements. Heaven applauds silent endurance. People celebrate public wins. Heaven celebrates private obedience. People notice the mountaintop moments. Heaven sees the valley decisions. There were times you fought battles entirely alone, not because you wanted secrecy, but because no one would have understood the depth of the warfare within you. And still you pressed through. Still you resisted. Still you kept choosing what was right over what was easy. These are victories heaven treasures. Heaven remembers the day you forgave someone who never apologized, not out of weakness, but out of obedience. Heaven remembers the day you refused to retaliate when you were provoked. Heaven remembers the day you chose peace when everything in you screamed for justice. Heaven remembers when you closed your door, fell to your knees, and prayed even with no words left inside you. You saw those moments as survival. Heaven saw them as worship. There were moments when your heart was heavy, but you served anyway. Moments when you were exhausted, but you encouraged someone else anyway. Moments when you felt empty, but you gave anyway. These are not small things, not to God. Psalm 126:5 says, "Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy." Heaven counted every tear that fell while you remained faithful. Heaven recorded every act of love that cost you more than you admitted. Heaven watched the seeds you planted in seasons of loneliness, uncertainty, and weariness. And God has not forgotten, because He cannot forget. Hebrews 6:10 declares that God is not unjust to forget your work and the love you've shown in His name. That means every unseen act of obedience has a harvest attached to it. Every hidden victory has a reward written into heaven's timeline. Every small yes has positioned you for the breakthrough you're stepping into. Chosen one, heaven's memory is long. It does not fade. It does not overlook. It does not ignore. You may feel like this year has been a cycle of battles, sacrifices, and quiet choices that nobody valued. But heaven valued them all. And now, the seeds you sowed in secret are rising. What grew in silence will be rewarded in the open. What you endured privately, God will honor publicly. Heaven remembers your hidden victories. And soon, the earth will see the results. If this spoke to your spirit, type, "I receive my hidden harvest," in the comments. Share your testimony to strengthen someone else. Your story has power. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this word. Someone needs the hope heaven just released through you. Chosen one, if you only knew what God has been building inside you during the seasons that felt like breaking, you would look at your journey with a completely different lens. You haven't just been surviving hardships, you've been formed by them, refined, strengthened, shaped. What felt like destruction was actually construction, and what felt like fire was actually formation, because God does not waste fire. He uses it. There are seasons in the Bible where God elevates quickly, and seasons where He shapes quietly. Joseph experienced both. Before he ever stood before Pharaoh, he stood in a pit, in slavery, in false accusation, in prison. By human standards, he looked forgotten. But in heaven's eyes, he was in training, developing resilience, humility, discernment, and integrity. that a crown alone could never produce. You have been in a similar forge. Every hardship carved something into you that comfort never could. Every disappointment built spiritual muscle you didn't know you had. Every delay taught you reliance instead of rushing. Every heartbreak enlarged your compassion for others. Every closed door sharpened your discernment. This is why Romans 5:3-4 says, "Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope." Your suffering wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your trials weren't obstacles, they were tools. Your fire wasn't failure, it was divine formation. God has been shaping your internal world so deeply that when He opens the next door, you will not only walk through it, you will remain there. This is important because elevation without formation is dangerous. It destroys more people than it promotes. But elevation after formation, that's destiny fulfilled. The enemy wanted you to interpret your pain as abandonment, but heaven meant for you to interpret it as investment. Think back on the hardest seasons you've endured, the moments you questioned everything, the nights when hope felt thin, the days when you carried heaviness in silence. Those very moments were the places where God formed the strongest parts of who you are now. He formed your endurance in the nights you cried and still prayed. He formed your courage in the battles you faced alone. He formed your faith in the seasons where nothing made sense. He formed your identity in the moments you chose righteousness over bitterness. You didn't come out weaker, you came out wiser. You didn't come out smaller, you came out steadier. You didn't come out empty, you came out established. Chosen one. The fire did not burn you. It refined you. It purified you. It prepared you. And now, the very strength forged in the dark is the strength that will carry you into what God has planned next. You are not a product of your pain. You are a product of God's process, and that process has produced someone heaven can trust. Chosen one. There's a war you've been fighting that is far deeper than circumstances, emotions, or relationships. It is not a war for your comfort, your career, your peace, or even your success. It is a war for something far more sacred, your identity. Because if the enemy can confuse your identity, he can limit your destiny. If he can distort your value, he can disrupt your purpose. If he can make you doubt who you are, he can make you abandon who you're becoming. This war didn't start with your mistake. It didn't start with your heartbreak. It didn't start with your trauma. It started the moment heaven marked you as chosen. The enemy saw the calling on your life long before you saw it. He saw the anointing you carry long before you recognized it. He saw the strength you didn't know you had. And because he could not stop God from choosing you, he tried to stop you from believing God chose you. That's why the attacks were so personal. That's why the rejection hurt so deeply. That's why the betrayal felt surgical, not accidental. You weren't merely discouraged, you were targeted. Identity warfare is strategic. It doesn't just wound your emotions. It wounds your definition of yourself. It doesn't just create pain. It creates narratives. It doesn't just break trust. It breaks self-perception. The enemy whispers, "You're failing. You're inconsistent. You're not who God says you are. You're too broken for God to use." But heaven's voice has never changed. The Father has spoken over you from the beginning. You are mine. You are chosen. You are loved. You are enough because I made you enough. Identity warfare is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of calling. The fiercest battles are reserved for those with the greatest purpose. Think about it. Moses was attacked in identity before he ever stood before Pharaoh. David was dismissed by family before he ever faced Goliath. Joseph was betrayed before he ever reached the palace. Jesus was tempted in the wilderness with one question: if you are the Son of God. The enemy has always tried to obscure the identity of those heaven has anointed, and you, chosen one, have felt that warfare intensely. Not because you are weak, but because you are dangerous to darkness. You've been questioning your worth. Heaven never questioned it. You've been doubting your calling. Heaven never doubted it. You've been replaying your failures. Heaven has been replaying your faith. What you thought was self-doubt was actually spiritual warfare. What you thought were personal insecurities were actually attacks against your assignment. But hear this: the enemy's greatest fear is that you finally see yourself the way God sees you. Because once you know who you are, your prayers change, your posture changes, your authority changes, your discernment sharpens, your boundaries strengthen, your spirit rises, your destiny accelerates. Chosen one, the war for your identity has been brutal, but it has not been victorious, because you are still standing. And now the fog is lifting, the lies are breaking, the truth is speaking louder than the wounds. You were not attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because you are crowned in destiny. Your identity is not up for debate. Heaven settled it long ago. Chosen one. Take a breath and let this truth wrap around your spirit. God is not harsh with you. He is compassionate toward you. He does not look at your humanity with irritation. He looks at you with tenderness. He remembers your frame. He knows your limits. He understands the weight you carry more than anyone in your life ever has. You have been afraid at times that God is disappointed with you. You have wondered whether your struggles made him pull back. You have questioned whether your weakness made him ashamed of you. But the Word tells a different story. Psalm 103, 13-14 says, "As a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him. For he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust." God does not expect perfection from dust. He expects honesty. He expects surrender. He expects the heart that keeps turning toward him, even imperfectly. And that is exactly what you've been doing. You've tried to be strong even when you were breaking. You've fought to stay faithful, even when hope shook. You've chosen God even when you didn't feel holy or confident. And do you know what heaven calls that? Beautiful, precious, delightful. Grace has never waited for you to get everything right. Grace meets you in your getting back up. God does not define you by your stumbles. He defines you by your direction. He sees the sincerity beneath the struggle. He sees the intention beneath the inconsistency. He sees the longing beneath the weariness. When others focus on your outward slips, God focuses on your inward yes. Grace is not fragile. His love for you is not conditional. His delight in you is not shaken by a bad day, a wrong turn, or a silent prayer. You've been harder on yourself than God has ever been on you. You saw failure where he saw formation. You saw delay where he saw development. You saw weakness where he saw willingness. Chosen one, God's heart is not cold toward you, it is warm. His posture is not distant, it is near. His delight is not vague, it is personal. He delights in the way you keep trying. He delights in the way you care. He delights in the way you return again and again, even when you feel unworthy. You think you're barely making it. But heaven sees you becoming. And God, your Father, your Maker, your shepherd, is looking at you with a love so deep, so patient, so compassionate, that if you felt even a fraction of it fully, every ounce of shame would break instantly. Chosen one, rest in this. You are loved, you are held, you are understood, you are delighted in, and nothing, absolutely nothing, can change that. Part 9. The Divine Shift in Heaven's Approval. 400 words. Chosen. 1. Something has begun shifting around you, and it is not random. It is the result of Heaven's approval being activated over your life. When God decides a season must change, nothing on earth or in hell can hold it in place. The shift is not coming. It has already started. This isn't your imagination. This isn't emotional hype. This is alignment. This is divine timing. This is heaven saying now. You have been faithful in the dark. You have endured quietly. You have obeyed when it hurt. And heaven has issued a decree. Honor the one who remained faithful. Hebrews 6:10 declares that God is not unjust to forget your labor of love. That means heaven keeps a detailed record. Every tear, every act of obedience, every seed sown in silence. And now, the God who remembers is moving on your behalf. Doors that were locked are about to swing open. Opportunities that resisted you will begin to seek you out. People who overlooked you will suddenly recognize your value. Delays that frustrated you will break with supernatural speed. Why? Because heaven has approved you. When God places His hand on your life, earthly resistance loses its power. When heaven says yes, no human opinion can say no. When God releases favor, circumstances must rearrange themselves. Isaiah 45:2 reveals God's posture in this moment. I will go before you and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of bronze and cut the bars of iron. This is not gentle favor. This is warrior favor. This is God removing obstacles by force. This is God clearing paths you could never clear on your own. This is God going ahead of you as defender, advocate, and shield. You are stepping into a season where things will begin to align without your striving, where prayers long delayed will suddenly be answered, where clarity will replace confusion, where purpose will rise from the ashes of your past discouragement. Chosen one. Heaven's approval is not fragile. It is not temporary. It is not dependent on your perfection. It is anchored in God's decision, and He has decided to bless you. Stand tall. Walk boldly. Move with expectation. Your steps are ordered. Your path is cleared. Your season is shifting. Because when heaven approves you, everything changes. Chosen one. Now that you have heard the truth, heaven has spoken over you, this final part is not just encouragement, it is a commissioning, a divine invitation to rise, to step forward and to walk in the identity God has affirmed over your life. You are not called to live like someone trying to earn God's approval. You are called to live like someone who already has it. God did not bring you this far to watch you shrink back into old narratives. He did not heal you just for you to return to old mindsets. He did not reveal truth to you simply so you could remain the same. This is your moment to rise. Rise above the shame that used to silence you. Rise above the insecurities that tried to define you. Rise above the patterns that once held you back. Rise above the fear that whispered you weren't enough. You are not who the enemy said you were. You are who God says you are. Chosen, beloved, appointed, anointed, and deeply treasured. Now is the time to receive. Receive the identity heaven has affirmed. Receive the love you once questioned. Receive the favor that is being released over your life. Receive the peace that is settling on your spirit. Receive the strength that is rising in your bones. Chosen one, walk into this next season with a posture that reflects heaven's perspective over you. Walk like someone covered in grace. Walk like someone deeply loved. Walk like someone who carries spiritual authority. Walk like someone who knows heaven is behind them. When doubt tries to speak, answer with truth. When fear rises, respond with faith. When shame attempts to whisper, silence it with Scripture. When old identities try to cling, remind yourself of who God has declared you to be. And now, let this final instruction settle into your heart. You don't fight for approval. You fight from approval. You don't pray to be worthy. You pray because you already are. You don't love to earn God's affection. You love because you are overflowing with His. Chosen one, God is pleased with you, and He is not done with you. What He has spoken over your life is not temporary. It is eternal. It is sealed. It is settled. As we prepare to transition into prayer, let your heart open wide. Let your spirit quiet down. Let every wall fall, every fear loosen, every doubt lift, because the prayer you are about to step into is not routine. It is alignment. Take a breath, prepare your spirit, and step into what heaven has prepared for you. If this message spoke to your spirit, chosen one, don't keep it to yourself. Let it become a blessing to someone else. Drop your Amen in the comments as a declaration that you receive this word. Share this message with at least one person who needs encouragement today. You never know whose life, faith, or hope might be restored because you took a moment to share what heaven is speaking. Let's spread this truth together.